All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Spencer Presley. I am the host of Shin Megami Tensei Network, a very not popular but somehow almost 10-year-old community for SMT, Atlas, and Persona. So thank you all for coming to my panel celebrating Persona turning 25. Woo! And for all of you people out there who might actually have played the first Persona all the way back in like 96, congratulations, we're old now. So, yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you all doubly so if you like dressed up. It was super cool. Sir, what is your Persona shirt from? I just realized. Is it the concert? Okay. That's what I was like thinking. It reminded me of like the super live shirts. It's okay. I'm gonna lose the real fan one because I wore my favorite Persona game shirt. Everyone's favorite, Dancing All Night. No one has any complaints about it. It's the game so nice I platinumed it 6 times. All right, everybody. So Persona 5 is turning 5. Persona as a series is turning 25. And I personally cannot be more excited, not because I have to talk about it on a weekly basis with my podcast, but just because I'm a sad human being who likes celebrating video games. So thank you all for being those human beings with me. So to celebrate, in case anyone doesn't know, we're going to go through the series kind of quickly, talk about it. But this is not only a panel where I talk to all of you, but if anyone has any thoughts, opinions, you love this game, you want to talk about it, you hate this game, you want to talk about it, just raise your hand, yell it out to the room, let me know. Did you have anything you want to say, or were you just raising your gun? Were you raising your gun or had a question? Okay, no, that's okay. You raise a gun in the air, I'll look at you. That's an easy way for me to not miss you. So first up, we have Revelations Persona, otherwise known as Shin Megami Tensei Persona. And fun fact, if anyone didn't know this, Revelations was like the really short-lived attempt by Atlas to shorten Shin Megami Tensei because, I mean, if you've ever tried telling your parents how do you say these 3 words, you might get varying results. So they used it for this. They used it also for, I think it was Last Bible on the Game Boy, and very short-lived. I'm glad they went back to SMT, but it has also been kind of funny how Persona specifically sometimes uses it, kind of got rid of it. Ironically, I guess I could use this as weird trivia if someone is really up for it. Trivia question, does anyone know when Japan stopped using Shin Megami Tensei with Persona? You in the back. So close. That was America, actually. You can come up here. You got a prize for losing. You got a card that definitely does not have Persona 5 Strikers on it. It was actually... Oh, here. Does anyone else want to give it a try? Shy Guy? Not Shy. Wait, right? Shy Guy? Okay. Watch it have been No Face, and I was wrong. So close. Get up here. I'll give someone one more chance. You. No. Did you want to try? No. Also come up for getting your loser card. Yay. It was Persona 3 Portable. Persona 3 Portable was like, F you guys, I've got my hot bitch money, we're rolling in the PSP, we don't need SMT, we got this. But what was funny is that like in the West, they kept it. Even though Japan dropped it, they had it all the way up until Persona 4, because it was like, hey, it's more text on the box, why not? Just go for it. So going back to the first one, released in 1996, actually one of the interesting things about this people don't talk about a lot is this had one of the shortest, if not like the shortest Persona release times. If I remember right, I think it was like July or September in Japan is when it released, and we got it like that November. So we got it in the fall very, very quickly. Now that being said, it was a really messy version. We were missing content. You didn't find out what the Ice Queen was. Characters were black for some reason. Hats were changed. But I mean, hey, Black Mark exists now, so God knows the series needs some colors. A lot of pasty people in this series. So I like to believe Black Mark is somewhere out there and maybe will be the star of Persona 6, but who knows? So it came out in 1996 all over the place, and what was so funny is people don't know this. It also released on PC in 1996. So for all you people out there who are like, more Persona ports, stop only being on PlayStation, just dust off your old computer from 1996, get a Japanese copy of this. It's only $100 or more. It's very accessible. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So next up, we have not one, but 2 games. We have Persona 2 Innocent Sin, which released in 1999, and then we had Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, which released in 2000. So, if anyone knows, these are like the weirdest kind of titles because they were split up. They are two separate games. They're not like a part 1 and a part 2. They're very much a duology, similar to if you play Digital Devil Saga. But the funny thing is with the Innocent Sin is that it's not like Innocent Sin was going to take forever, so let's do Eternal Punishment. They literally, at Atlas in the West, just had no runway to make it happen. And what was so funny about it was, because they didn't really have any localization time to localize it, someone still thought, no, guys, let's put out the second half of this. Forget Infinity War. Let's just give America Endgame, and they'll understand the rest of it as it happens. So, while it is horrifyingly weird and dumb that Eternal Punishment only came out in the West and we never got the original version of Innocent Sin, it's still kind of so weird that I kind of love it. Like, they included a bonus disc with, like, an anime to maybe explain it, but it didn't really explain anything. And Persona 2 Innocent Sin actually has a lot of really funny localization stories people might know. This was the first time there was English voice acting for a Persona game. It's not great English voice acting, but hey, it's 90s anime quality, so you could enjoy that at the time. And funny things I've learned over my years of harassing and talking to too many people who worked on games. The script for this is actually still in circulation. The company who does all the voice acting for all of Atlas's games is called PCB Production. And from this game all the way up into Persona 5 Strikers and everything else, it has always been the same production company. So the same people who have been directing them and working on them and editing them have been the same company all the way from Persona 2. And it's just so funny to me that, like, it's one of those weird ones of, like, I think people are always like, oh, Persona has such like a good, like, dub for it, but I think one of the nice things is it's at least always had, like, a certain level of consistency, which has been nice, because you can't necessarily look at even something like, when you're listening to Final Fantasy X's English voice acting, it's very different than what you're seeing in 15, whereas there's kind of a steady progression. Yeah. Oh my God, yes. I think Sonic gets a weird pass, though, because Sonic gets a weird pass for a lot of things. By the way, shout out to Sonic Colors yesterday, guys. I hope no one bought that on Switch. I'm sorry. I went to bed last night, and Sonic was trending in Sega. I was like, this can't be good. It's a Friday night. This shouldn't be trending, and it was for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, Sonic gets a weird pass, I think, because A, it's Sonic, and B, because they have such large gaps between the voice actors that it's like you either love 90s cartoon Sonic, Dreamcast Sonic, or Roger Craig Smith Sonic right now. Like, it's kind of in its own weird thing, whereas, like, thankfully, because they keep reinventing cast, they don't really have that issue as much. So now the one that probably a lot more people are familiar with is we have Persona 3, which we had to start delaying the releases because they kept getting larger and larger. So Persona 3 released in 2006 in Japan and 2007 in the West. Just out of curiosity, because I feel like this is always the case, whose first Persona game was this on the PS2? Okay, that's actually way less than the last time I asked that, so that makes me feel good. The series is expanding. For like the longest time, I always thought of 3 as like the Final Fantasy VII, where like a large amount of the fan base started with 3, so it has to be the best and is everyone's favorite. Okay, I have to. This is a dumb personal bet thing, but I have to also ask because I have a room full of people. Who here thinks Persona 3 is getting a remake anytime soon? I appreciate you for being very bold and honest in a room of nobody else. But okay, that makes me feel much better. I've had a topic recently because of all the projects that are getting announced soon. People are like, Persona 3's got to get remade. It's coming, guys. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you are all down-to-earth, level-headed people, and I respect you greatly. And if you believe in it, I respect you doubly so for being that person. Because if you weren't there, then people wouldn't talk about it. We need both sides of the argument. So, speaking of other sides, we have Persona 3 Fez, which is going to be my next overly hard question of the panel. Released in 2007 and 2008 in America. Who here knows what FES stands for? I think you in the back got it. A little louder? No. Yes, I think you had it next. You are correct. You can both come up and grab your cards of excitement and great wisdom. But, hold on, I haven't... Yeah, get a card. Yeah, go for the card. Person, if you also want a card, you are more than welcome to come grab it. I've just had a blank out because it's 12 o'clock in the morning apparently. Did I actually say what it stood for, or am I really high? No, I'm not said what it stood for. Does anyone else want to try one more time what FEZ stands for? Yes? You're correct. Festival. Both of you are correct. So you can both come up and get a card. No, yeah, it's weird, and because like honestly, I get why it's called festival. It's like it's like the school thing. They're celebrating, blah blah blah, but it's such it is like kind of an odd one of like the other subtitles kind of always made sense in a theming sense. I don't look at Persona 3 as a festival, but I mean. We bought it either way, so that was the fun part. So Persona 3, really important game for the series. While the first two games were definitely setting the tone, getting the characters, implemented a lot of things, whether it be new or from SMT, 3 was a really interesting kind of step for them because Atlus at the time, all of their 3D games were very similar. They started with Naka Kon on the Dreamcast. They had worked with Nocturne on the PS2, Digital Devil Saga, and the Devil Summoner games, which are coming out around at the same time as this. But they were all very much a kind of different game because there weren't social elements. You weren't making friends. You weren't going out and exploring the town and checking it out. And I think that's one of the funny things that even after 3 releases, Atlus discovered of like, hey, people like living in our world and not just like fighting characters and choosing whether to be good, bad, or in between. So it was kind of interesting that 3 was the one that really popped off. And one other like little fun thing with it, I think it's safe to assume one of the most universally known things about 3 is the gun to the head thing with the evoker. And the best part about that is one of like my favorite stories with it is that at the time, everyone at Atlus, when Persona 3 was about to come out, were scared to death. They were like, our game is going to get like canceled. Some mom is going to think our game is Pokemon shooting themselves in the face or something like horrifyingly bad like that. But hilariously, Persona 3 was so niche even at the time. It never once had, no one ever complained, no one ever filed anything with Sony. Nothing. To this day, no one has ever really like tried to like strike down like Persona 3, which is so funny because I think like if it wasn't for the fact that it's kind of so well known for so long, if no one had ever done this and we had done it now, I think it'd be very safe to say like, probably don't have a game where a bunch of high schoolers are theoretically shooting themselves in the head. But I'm glad at least Atlus had like the incentive and the drive to kind of want to do that. Just out of curiosity here, general vibes in the room. Who here enjoys the answer, the new story stuff in Persona 3 FEZ? You shot your hand up so fast, I need you to explain it, because I despise playing through it, and I love hearing why people like that. I love Aegis, but it's a lot of filler. There's a lot of walking through doors and not a lot of story in there. Okay, that's good. I appreciate that. Any other answer lovers? That's why I find it really, really funny when, because we are getting a new port of Persona 3 soon for the anniversary. One of the funny thing is, people are always like, you have to do FEZ, because if you miss the answer, you're missing out on a lot of crucial stuff with it. But I've always kind of felt like, honestly, I feel like you could just make an OVA out of that very easily, and people would enjoy that a lot more than 30 hours of finding that story. But, like, have it available, sure. I'm also on the weird side of history that I actually liked all the concessions Portable made, but we're not there yet. We're talking about everyone's favorite, I hope, Persona 4. So Persona 4, well, I might as well also say, whose first Persona was Persona 4? More than 3. That's like doubly surprising, but that makes me feel glad. So Persona 4 released in America and Japan same year in 2008. Let me tell you, because of how late into the PlayStation 3 generation this was, nothing made you look like a bigger nerd than buying this and playing it on your, like, $500 game console at the time. You're like, no, move over Metal Gear Solid 4. I need to play this, like, very low-resolution JRPG on this new system now. But Persona 4, I think, is really interesting, especially after how many years it's been since its release of... Persona 4 is... You could easily say it is Persona 3, but yellow, and they made Scooby-Doo. But I think it really goes to show that, like, taking that formula from 3 and really honing it down getting a new cast of characters that resonated with so many people for so many reasons. Like, I don't even know if it's like a difference with like the characters, but it's like the fact that like I cannot think of the last time I've seen people not cosplay as Chie at a convention. And I can't think of the last time I've seen like a Junpei or a Yukari. And they're all great characters, but it's one of those things, if I think these characters just like resonated so much more with everyone around the world. And I don't know if it was just because of the story they were in, how cute Nanako's laugh was at singing the Juness song. Like, for a game that has people hanging from the rafters, dying all over the place, it is so wholesome. I just want to live in Inaba all the time, forever and always. Anyone have any thoughts they want to share about why they might love or hate Persona 4? Last year? You were waiting that long? I commend your patience. No spoilers. It may be the main protagonist. Yeah. You on the left, and then I'll get you in the back. Yeah, I get that. Okay. Yeah. You in the back? Who on the cast were you like when you saw them? You're like, I gotta play this now. Really? Okay. I love Johnny Young Bosch, but like I think like I could like say nice things about the entire cast. Like, there's not a single person in like 4. Like, even like Sam, who voices like Teddy, I'm like a really big fan of like all their work for it. But like everyone on that cast, I have bad news because I've met the entire voice cast. Everyone in person from the cast Persona 4, the nicest human being alive. Erin Fitzgerald, by the way, voice of Chie. I share birthday with her. We just have like birthday podcasts. Like, she's just the nicest lady for no reason at all. Just like whatever. But like, if you all have Twitter, please interact with all of the cast or all the voice actors in these games. They're all fantastic, super awesome people. Yeah.
One of the things I like about...
Sorry. I meant her, but then you can go. Your parents are very irresponsible. This is a game for adults. It is rated M for mature, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Okay. I forgot. So who's the one who says something much louder? You? Okay, cool.
One of the things I like about Persona 3 and 4 is that, like, if you compare them in tone, they're almost completely opposite. Like, 4 is so happy and, like, you know, gets you looking forward to things, whereas 3, like, pretty much that entire game is, like a countdown to, like, the end of the world. It's like, and it very much, like, conveys that not only through, like, the character character dialogue, but like the way the game is designed and just everything. It just has this very like downtrodden feel to it, whereas 4 is like, you know, it literally opens up like this chat where everyone's dancing, you know. I don't know, I just love comparing the tone between the two because they're both phenomenal games and they're both like basically the same, but except for 4 has a lot more like, you know, I love 3, but it's got a lot of like features about it that I don't think, you know, are very good. And like they kind of like move out of it at the time, like level designs and stuff like that.
No, yeah, especially, and it is funny that like you're correct. Like they are so different, but they are made by the exact same team, only like 2 years really apart. So it was just kind of so funny of like. It'd be like if you saw someone give you like the most like depressing OC fan fiction one day, and then they came to school with like, hey, by the way, here's everyone I can in my like life scenario with them in the future as we're all married with 9 kids. So I think I'm gonna save closer to the end of like talking about each game because I would actually love if you guys like when we're like done, assuming I have more time. Share memories because I do like bouncing off like reasons people like the game, reasons people like maybe connected with it when you guys got it, and then that way I can have you guys line up if you want to use the microphone, so that way everyone can hear everybody. So next up, we've got the ports or the remakes, depending on who you're talking about. So the PSP games are really special to me for many reasons. I love the PSP, but I also loved this era of Atlus being like, hey, Persona 3 is really big. Persona 4 is getting even bigger. It's just come out. Let's get all of this series onto as many platforms. Let's get all of the series onto this platform as much as possible because the PSP was so big around the world, especially Japan. So Atlus used the PSP to bring Persona to this huge new audience. And I know it's kind of funny to say because really when's the last time people might have seen a PSP, but trust me, 10 years ago, PSPs, they were popping. They were all over the place. So the first one that came out was Persona 1, and these weren't just like a port. These were totally redone graphics. They had new voice acting, brand new music, and an entirely different soundtrack that some people may like, some people may not. I enjoy the kind of tonal difference of the two, but it was interesting of trying to give a more definitive version of this game that had released all the way back on the PlayStation that especially if you're looking for a copy in the West, you're not going to find a copy of Persona 1 willy-nilly. Now, next up, what was extra funny was that the way it released is actually how I have it here. Of it did go Persona 1, 3, Innocent Sin, and Eternal Punishment because why make sense of reasons? So different teams were working on these versions, but Persona 3 Portable was the one that was in development the longest because Persona 3 was so big, and they wanted to capitalize on that market by getting one of their biggest games at the time on one of the biggest platforms in Japan. So what was so interesting about Persona 3 Portable is that it is the entirety of Persona 3 with new additional scenarios. You can play as a female protagonist. Yes? All of Persona 3. Correct, I know. I am just as much that guy, so do not worry. But yeah, so while it did not have the answer, I always think it's funny looking at old Japanese interviews at the time. The team at Atlus were like, we're sad that we can't have the answer there. I am sorry, is your hand up, person over there? No. Okay, I was like, man, you had it in like that position of like, I've been holding it for 30 minutes. This guy has not looked at me the whole time. All right. So They were sad they couldn't include the answer just due to memory space. Like, even though they took out a lot of the 3D assets, at the time, you could only have a PSP game, I think, be like 2 or 3 gigabytes on a UMD, because there really wasn't downloading at the time. And what was so funny about it was the concessions they made really changed it. Even though it is, at its core, still Persona 3, it is now a completely different genre almost. Like, while you could say Persona 3 was like a dating sim, life sim aspect with RPG elements, now Persona 3 Portable is basically a visual novel. You're going through places by hubs, you're talking into chat boxes a whole lot more than you normally would. And for me, one of the things I always find kind of special about Persona 3 Portable is that was my first introduction to visual novels. That was not a series or a genre we got a lot in the West, especially in the early 2010s and stuff. So I like that it introduced me to this entirely different genre before I even knew really what it was, and then Danganronpa just tainted my life, and then I played trash visual novels the rest of my life. But just out of curiosity, is anyone here not a fan of the visual novel setup in Portable? I appreciate you all for having good taste. You're on the right side of history. You're living a good life. Thank you. So next up, importantly, I'm going to stop kissing Persona 3 Portable for a second. Innocent Sin, after a decade plus, finally released, and people were like, oh, hey, that's those characters from that game I beat 10 years ago. Innocent Sin came out, English voice cast, new music, rearranged music, new graphics, and what was so great and heartbreaking about this was literally all we wanted from Persona 2, or just Persona ports in general. They finally gave us a dub. They finally gave us a localization. We're happy. We're thriving. We're living our best lives. Atlas in Japan were like, baby, we got you. We're remaking Eternal Punishment, coming out 2012. And then they looked at us in the West like this and went, I don't want to give you that game. You guys don't get that game. And yeah, literally, that's kind of how it went. Eternal Punishment got its own remake on the PSP, came out in 2012. And the only reason it never came out was because it was 2012 and the PSP was the PSP. People had moved on to the 3DS. The PlayStation Vita was big at the time. Like, at the time they were making and releasing this game, Persona 4 Golden was a few months out from release. So it's like, let's put our efforts onto the one that's going to make millions of dollars as opposed to tens of thousands of dollars, which as a company makes sense. As a person with a soul and likes this franchise, sucks big time. But I like to imagine that Eternal Punishment, this remake, and every version of all these games we've never gotten in the West will come eventually, and it just extra sucks because it's like, I think nothing is worse than being a fan of a franchise and being told, hey, not only are we not localizing this game in your region, but it's also going to be stuck on this platform that you're probably not going to want to pick up in 2012 or even 2021. So that one really, really stunk. But I'm optimistic. They have an anniversary. They've got to release some stuff. Next up, my favorite, well, one of my favorites, Persona 4 Golden. So Persona 4 Golden came out on the PlayStation Vita exclusively for 8 years in 2012. And man, what a game. Now, you would think, okay, it's an HD port of a PS2 game, came out a couple years back. How big could it be? But I hope I'm not understating or overstating this. Persona 4 Golden, for years, felt like, are you a fan of this genre? Even if you don't know or what Persona is, it's the recommended game everyone goes to. Yes?
Fun fact, it's actually the best-selling game on the Vita.
Oh my gosh, you're so wrong, but I want that to be right. No, it is one of the best sellings. It's sold right now. It's at like 1.5, over 1.5 million. Unfortunately, the best-selling game on Vita at like 3 million copies is actually Minecraft. But that's because yes, at one point it was, but yes, currently it's Minecraft. I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's because Japan loved Minecraft on Vita. That's why. Yes. That is very true. I have not platinumed Golden for the reason that I know the trophy list sucks, because this was one of Atlas's like first takes at trophies, and you can tell the guy who like was in the boardroom going like, boop, 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 doo, doo. Hey, we need a bronze trophy. Just make him listen to every Risei line. How many lines has she got? Oh, like 300. Yo, can you get it in one playthrough? Yeah, but you have to follow this guide, and it's going to make the game really unfun. Oh, no one cares about trophies. Just do it anyway. Yeah, it's a really bad like platinum, and I haven't done it myself, which says a lot because I platinum a lot of really annoyingly long games. I want to do it one day, but I mean, I have no excuse now. I've done like so many like Atlas is just. They either make the trophy list way too easy for the achievements or way too hard. And just know, when you're going into a game like this, if you love it and don't like having to do the worst parts of a game you love, just don't worry about platinuming it. Leave it to the weirdos like me who want to ruin the experience for themselves and play 100 hours. Did someone else have their hand up I might have missed? Okay. So yes, sold amazingly, super highly recommended game. Even still, has been printed a bajillion times. And the funniest thing about this, though, is this used to be the easiest recommendation for physical people too. Even though when it was only on the Vita, this game was like $20 for like 6 years. And because of the PlayStation Vita market imploding now, a regular copy of this averages like around $60 without the box and like 80 to 100 with the box. I don't recommend anyone buying it for that much, but it is like one of my favorite games of all time. It's so funny of just being like, even though this game has been printed literally millions of times, kind of hard to recommend physically, but obviously digital, it's $20. It's now on PC, $20. There's a Japanese dub on there. They added a bunch of quality of life features. Fun fact I always love saying about this, because people don't look into the dumb, nerdy stuff like I. The developer who ported Persona 4 Golden to PC was not Atlus. They contracted out like another studio. They were like looking for so low budget on this project. The company's website who ported this is most known for making VTubers than games. So they'll be like, oh yeah, we'll make your VTubers and do your stages and set up for it. And they're like, if you scroll all the way at the bottom, they're like, oh, and we ported Persona 4 Golden to PC. I'm like, okay, it's your priorities, I get it. So next up, we have the years of milking Persona 4, otherwise known as the best years of my life. After Persona 4 Golden came out, they just kind of imploded with spin-offs, and I was all in for it. A, because that was literally when I started this podcast and community at the time of, hey, we're in a post-2012 world. Persona 4 Arena exists. Arena's getting a sequel. DS games, dancing games. It's the best time to be alive. Now, if you, for whatever reason, hate Yu Narakami's face, I don't know why you hate Yu Narakami's face. You could complain about it, but personally for me, this era of starting to get a lot of like non-mainline titles, I was all in for. So our first one we got to talk about, in between the development of Persona 4 and 5, obviously the main team who developed that game was working on Catherine, and then they worked on Persona 5 for, I think, being realistic, maybe 900 years. It just felt like 900 years. So they had a bunch of smaller teams working on various projects. And the first one that released was Persona 4 Arena, and I am such a... Like, I mean, I know it sounds like I'm jerking off all these games I've talked about, but, like, specifically Arena has a really special place in my heart as a big fighting game fan. I was curious, who here maybe remembers or played Persona 5 Arena or Ultimax? Now, there is a canon story. It does cross over with Persona 3. I will tell you this. It's got one of the most trash stories ever. The story's great. It's just stretched out over 40 hours of cutscenes that are only visual novel portraits lip-flapping at you, and it definitely could have been done in like a 5-hour like condensed story mode. But Arc System Works, the people who made it, they did Guilty Gear, BlazBlue. They love just making overly long story modes, so that's their thing. But as just like a game on its own, Arena and Ultimax are just so crazy. It's a 2D anime fighting game. There's actually arcade versions of it. If you went to Japan at the time, there are these giant just Persona arcade cabinets, which one day, if I ever like don't live in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment, I will have those cabinets in my life and think this is all I wanted. Now I'm happy. But yeah, it was just something about these were so funny of like, it got the fighting game community interested. And at the time, people I knew, even though Persona 4 was so big, I knew so many people who got into this series from a spin-off fighting game, which is just so crazy to me, of just being like, it's like, oh, hey, how are you interested in Mario? Oh, I played that DDR game on GameCube. It's like no one has those stories except like in weird cases like this. So Arena released, Ultimax released a couple years later. It's basically just the expanded version of it. You can experience the story through DLC, blah, blah, blah. It was notable, though, that it was one of the first crossovers they did of it had the cast of Persona 3, sorry, protagonist, not in there, with Persona 4 interacting with each other. And it was in such an interesting way of time had passed. They were older characters. It was cool seeing Junpei being super down on his luck as like a baseball coach for a little league team. Like, this is where his life has become now. But then like looking at people like Mitsuru, who are like super badass like girl bosses, and then Akihiko basically being like every testosterone commercial rolled up into one protein shake. So it was cool seeing how the characters evolved. It was great kind of like being in a fun, exciting fighting game. But it is one of those weird ones of like, if you don't like fighting games, it's just like you're not going to get a lot out of it. The story is fine, but it is just so text heavy. Ironically, the best way to experience the story of Persona 4 Arena is through a manga that only released in Japan, so I'm not really helping you out there. But if you can read Japanese, there's an amazing manga, and it redeems one of the most under-talked about characters. So if anyone in this remembers this redheaded shithead, Sho Minazuki, if anyone remembers Sho, thank you. He's a trash boy, he's a dumpster man, but we love him so much, and he's a 10 out of 10 guy. So next up, we've got Persona 4 Dancing All Night on the PlayStation Vita. Now, if you want to talk about not exciting mainline fans, a PlayStation Vita exclusive dancing sequel to Persona 4 Golden might not be that exciting on paper. But if you love dancing games like me, or if you just love great rhythm games in general, I genuinely think of like Persona 4 Dancing as like top 3 best rhythm games I have ever played. And I've played a lot of them. I like the Project Diva games. I like, yes. Oh, say it again? Yeah, so the fun thing about that was Mika was added, a bunch of other characters were added. The game actually originally was going to be developed by Dingo. Dingo were the original creators of the Project Diva games. Yes.
I was actually going to say there also was a cross-promotion with Arcade where they actually added that model into it.
Yeah, it was kind of because I think actually I don't think the game is here this year, but if you were at Naka Kon 2 years back, I forget the name of the rhythm game. It's a giant circle, and you have to tap these 4 squares on each side. And yeah, it had the collab with this. You know what? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it had a lot of collaborations with different things for it. But what was so funny about Dancing All Night was, while Arena was definitely, hey, I can see it not really being everyone's thing, Dancing All Night is that one that I will be the annoying friend with that just try it. Just try it once. It's so colorful. It's really fun. And actually what I love about it the most is that its story, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I love all the new characters they added. Kanami, I think, is such a great, like, fun character that fit in the world without feeling like, oh, hey, you're suffering from new character syndrome. And the story is like super doable. You can beat it within like 5 hours, and there's still a lot of content. And what was so funny about it was they put a lot of work into this game, like way more than I think people really recognize. Like I said, the game was originally developed by Dingo. They didn't finish the game though. They had about 2 years of development into it, and Atlas Japan looked at the product and were so unhappy with the direction they went in, they took all of the models they had used and they scrapped the entire game. So it was originally the story mode was going to be all 3D. It was going to have way less like specialized dances. It was basically just going to be Project Diva Persona 4 edition. And the team at Atlas were like, hey, our games need a story. They need to really matter. Even though this is not like a mainline game, they wanted to have a big focus on the story, and they brought all of the development in, and they finished it themselves internally, which I always gave them a big shout on the back for. Because like, I think it would have been easy to make a rhythm game in like 2 years, crank it out, and then forget about it. But it was nice that, at least with Persona 4, they were like, hey, this is special. This is a big series for us. We want to show it respect. And they did that all out with Persona 4 Dancing. Did not do that with 3 and 5, but we'll get to that later. So next up, I feel like no one talks about these games very much, but I love Persona Q. Persona Q released exclusively on the 3DS, and it was developed by the Etrian Odyssey developers. Another crossover between Persona 3 and 4, because 1 and 2 don't exist. And what was so funny about it was a first-person dungeon-crawling RPG very similar to the mystery dungeon games they'd made before. But what was so crazy about it was all of the kind of ways you could customize. You didn't have to just be Persona 3 characters. You could just be a team of some mixed up with each other. And really fun story, amazing music. If you love Persona's music and have never checked out the soundtracks to any of the Q games, you're doing a crime against the entire world. Yes. Oh my, no! I mean, maybe people out there. No, definitely. Q2, hilariously, the least played game in the series, best soundtrack in the series. They absolutely killed it with Q2. So next up, little indie game. Some people might have heard of this. It's called Persona 5. Who here started the series with Persona 5? I appreciate you all for being honest. There's no judgment unless you played the PS3 version. Who played the PS3 version? You did the PS3 version? All right. You platinumed it, you're redeemed. That's okay. My favorite thing was this was announced as a PS3 game way back in 2012. Yeah, oh yeah. Atlas went bankrupt and they had to announce this. It was really funny. So it was announced forever ago as a PS3 only game because Atlas sticks with last gen games for so long. They rode that out for so long that by the time Persona 5 released on PS3, there were people who were like, wait, who doesn't have a PS4 right now? Which obviously there are those people, but it got to that point of it, I think, especially because of how much the PS4 sold. Like, the PS4 is in the Wii numbers. Like, you got to really try for someone to not have one now. Like, do you have a PS4 now? There you go. Everybody, like, I'm throwing them away. I got 4 at home. I don't even know what to do with them. So, I will say this. If you want to know, like, the most hilarious dramas that happened with Persona 5, there's 2 really dumb ones. There was a drama because the PS3 did not get the collector's edition. People were very upset that only the PS4 people got that for it, which, like, I can understand. It's nice to have it on both systems. The other one was around this. You might notice Morgana's head kind of covering up all of Ann's boobs. So in the Japanese cover, Ann had her chest exposed, and people thought censorship was the reason behind it, when in actuality, the ESRB was trying to Mike Wazowski Morgana, so they just photoshopped up the file a little bit more. Yes?
Did you get the Take Your Heart edition when it first came out?
Yes.
Okay, so fun fact about that. The day one releases of that came with like a controller skin that you could get, but even if you got the Take Your Heart edition, you did not get that.
Yeah, so
The most irritating thing for me to not have the thing for my day one.
I get not having all things being the collector's edition. My thing with the controller skin, there's a funny story behind that. Basically, the pre-order bonus for Persona 5 at launch was a steelbook if you got it. And if you pre-ordered it, the game oversold pre-orders so much that Atlas didn't have enough at launch. So even though they produced like hundreds of thousands of copies of the steelbook, Persona 5 had so much hype going into 2017 in the West that they were like, oh my god, what do we do to entice people to get day one copies? And they made this controller decal skin, which I love that you are mad that you don't have. Like, for me, decals, I'm like, it's like sticker. Yeah, it's like, it's going to stay in the box. I'm not going to touch it. It's like, okay, do your thing, man. But yeah, so released in 2016, 2017, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. Big game. And the funniest thing about it was, going back 5 years, this was the 20th anniversary kind of celebration game for the time. If you actually play Persona 5 Vanilla, it has that on the boot-up screen. It shows the logo with all the school academies and for it. And I thought it was really funny of like, I liked that it celebrated the anniversary for it. No part of the game felt like a celebration, though. Like, kind of with the DLC, but then the fact that I had to buy the costumes from the other games doesn't really feel... It's like a birthday party where you have to pay for your drinks. It's like, cool, thanks for inviting me to your party, but I kind of... Be nice if I didn't have to buy all my food while I was here. Yes? We're gonna... Okay, well, I'll just get to that. So there's a dumb story about why Royal gave you all the Persona 5 DLC for free. In Japan, do you remember what they did with the DLC from Persona 5? So in Japan, because Japan is Japan and Japan must Japan, they decided in their infinite greedy wisdom, if you bought Persona 5 and all of the DLC in Royal, you are allowed the privilege to buy that DLC again for Royal for $1 each piece of DLC item. So it's like, well, we can't really give it to you for free, so we're going to make you pay $1 for each one you did. Like when Nintendo did the Virtual Console for the Wii to Wii U. Like, don't worry, we're giving you that sweet $1 upgrade for Mario Brothers. Japan hated it, but obviously Japan did it because we all would have done it here too. And Atlas in the West were like, whew, that's really bad. We shouldn't do that. And we're like, okay, let's give it all away for free. But then you have a problem. If you want to play the DLC in Persona 5 Vanilla on PS3 or PS4, all of that DLC still costs money. If you buy a Royal Edition, that DLC is free. I think it was like a 1 step forward, 2 steps back of like, I think giving that DLC away for free, great. Shouldn't have been charged for in Royal. Royal should have had all the DLC from the base game to begin with. But then why are people who want to play the original version then forced to still buy it if you want? Because Vanilla and Royal are different games at the end of the day. Those DLC shouldn't cost money. It just kind of makes everyone look bad. So 5, I think, is a really interesting one. 5 is very different from 4. It opened up things. It tried to make it a lot more expansive, have a darker story, new cast of characters, new battle systems. They brought the guns back, thank God. I'm curious, for you guys out there, who here, when it comes to like why did Persona 5 hit so big? What is someone's like kind of like go to, like what's my quick summary of Persona 5 popular because yes? Do you have your hand up or scratch? Yeah, go for it. I have to ask because I'm a very jaded individual. When you mean you laughed the hardest, was it with the game or at the game? Okay. Because like there is some dialogue in Persona 5 where I'm like, bro, I am laughing at you right now. Person really in the far back with the green hair. Character design definitely makes sense for sure. Did you have one though as well? Yeah, I get that. It's kind of like, for me, I have a really weird story of like being a fake fan for Persona 5. I had Persona 5 actually like 3 months early for review at the time, and I was stupid, and I did that dumb thing that no one should do when they're reviewing a game, and I had my heart broken by this girl and went into an emotional spiraling deficit for multiple years. Not actually that bad. But the last thing I wanted to do at the time in my weird post-breakup stage was play this 100-hour RPG for review. So even though I did this weekly podcast talking about this game, I actually never beat Persona 5 until 2 months before Royal last year. But I was in a really interesting position because of that, where I played Persona 5, Japanese version of Strikers, then Royal, all back to back with each other, and it gave me the weirdest perspective of like, that's new, that's not new, that's really bad, that's the same. Because I think a lot of people from like the 4-year span of Persona 5 to Persona 5 Royal, it's very easy to forget a couple of things, be like, oh, I like this is new, or oh, it's taking me back. I'm like, no nostalgia glasses. I'm gonna be as biased as humanly possible. So I always enjoyed that. I regret that it took me that long to beat Persona 5, but it was kind of fun to finally tick it off my list and be able to like have this weird perspective with Royal. But who else had their hands up for why 5 is 5 or why 5 is popular? Yeah, they definitely prided themselves on presentation in a really high way of make it look smooth, play smooth, and go really fast and really like fluid. Like it's definitely not a game that like if you fall asleep playing Persona 5 and you're like in the metaverse, like I don't know, dude. Like maybe you took like an Advil or something it's a very poppy game. It's like in your face and on purpose. Like to the point now where it's like become a meme of any game that has distinct visual art styles. Oh, it's a Persona 5 game. Yes. It's interesting you mentioned it being your first JRPG of like I think it actually excels really good at being a not babied down RPG, but it definitely like any time like I've ever heard like fans complain about like certain aspects of 5, I always kind of understand it of like I get it takes a lot of interesting steps forward, but it's not a hard game. And I know for some people, difficulty matters. I'm one of the weirdos who's like, hey, dude, play the game as hard or as easy as you want. At the end of the day, we're all not here talking about the Bloodborne-like difficulty of Atlas games. Like, them being hard isn't fun. No one's bragging about beating, like, Persona 4 on its hardest mode, and that's why it was fun. It's like, it's just as fun on baby mode as it is on hard god mode. But that's its entirely own discussion. Yes. How'd you guys go so long? Were you just like shunning RPG? You're not like 12. What you guys are looking at these games? Yeah, if you don't like the soundtrack of Persona 5, please like let your voice be heard right now. I need to like know who these people are. Yes. Is it like, because like the only time I've ever heard people don't like it is actually the music nerds who are like, it's like faux acid jazz. It feels like someone trying to be jazz.
I think the music's one of the best in the entire series. It's just it's not that I completely despise this. I have a lot of issues with the main stories and the characters and some gameplay aspects.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the worst game, but like, because here's this. I'm not trying to plug anything, but I made an almost 2-hour-long video that analyzes the entire game. And
There are so many people on YouTube like that. Just what's your name so then people can look it up.
if you want to look at it, it's Dumarashi.
Okay.
I'm not here to plug anything.
No, I literally can like think of at least 5 friends who have done 2-hour Persona 5 analysis videos. So I'm like, give any help for finding your video, but I get it.
But it's just like, I think there's like a lot of contradictions. Like, some characters get built up to be like this, and then later on ones completely forgotten about, like a joke or a different story.
Mm-hmm.
The gameplay gets kind of stale fast. Because, like, once you know how to beat an enemy, that's it. It's like muscle memory.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that for sure. You, and then we'll move on because I think there might be 9 other games after this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, I always kind of wish they leaned more into that in the actual game. If anyone remembers, like, the original announcement trailer of the 5 chairs talking about being a slave, like, yo, this game better be, like, the roots of weeb games. And it was not. So next up, the Forgotten Ones. Pour some out for the homies. These games are not bad, but these are definitely ones that, even though they are some of the most recent releases, the worst selling in the entire series. So we have Persona 3 and 5 Dancing. And if you all remember that 9-hour diatribe I gave to Persona 4, how much love and care they put into the development, hilariously, they did the opposite with 3 and 5. So this started as a Persona 3 dancing game solely, originally, just to, like, I think, like, just celebrate its music, follow it up like that. And the higher-ups at the company were like, hey, do that for 5. I'm like, okay, but it's going to, like, kind of cut into the budget. Also release it at the same time. Okay. Also release it on another platform. Okay. Also give it VR support no one's going to do. Okay. And they're like, cool, how many songs did you make? Like, barely 20 in each. Like, it's a very watered-down experience, but I think it's like on their own, Persona 3 and 5 Dancing are very hard to recommend, while 4 is very easy. Due to how poorly they sold, you can get like the entire trilogy for like $20, often on sale. All of them back to back, they're a good experience. I'm sure they'll be released one day on other systems all bundled together, but when they released on their own, they were a very messy, weird release, and it's like one that I think no one holds any nostalgia for just because of how it was. Like, it was one of those weird ones of they failed at enticing anyone in Japan and even in the West. It was like such a weird one out there. But hey, maybe one day I'll find someone who's like, I love Persona 3 more than 4 dancing. Maybe there are those people out there. So next up we have Persona Q2. It released in 2018 in Japan, 2019 in the West. And does anyone know what makes Persona Q2's release in the West extra special? There's 2 reasons. You. A little louder? No dub. They cucked us on the dub. But what is your other? There is another reason.
I can't remember if it is or if it's close to, but I'm pretty sure it's like the last physical release.
It is the last retail release. There's a couple, like Limited Run has done some. A couple other companies are doing smaller DS runs, but the last time you could go into a GameStop or a Best Buy or a probably not Walmart, but like it was the last retail 3DS game. And I love that it was Persona Q2, but I kind of hate it at the same time because it was so late into even the DS's life. It is not a game you're going to find very often. It is one of the lowest printed Persona games of all time. I have heard rumblings it is going to get reprinted if you want, but then the problem with that kind of becomes, well, it's on a region lock system. So while that would be great for all of us, because like who here wants Persona Q2 but just doesn't want to buy a $90 copy? Like it's a good game, but like it's hard to recommend. It has a lot of weird like stipends to it. The other thing with it though is like they just kind of went in biting their own foot, which really sucks because at the end of the day, it's a great game. Like you said, it's got one of the best soundtracks in the entire series. They added in the cast of 5. It's an interesting take on the story. It just kind of was going up against like it did everything right in development and then stumbled on every angle in terms of publishing, sadly. Next we have Persona 5. Again and again with Persona 5. So we've got, first up, Persona 5 Royal, released in 2019 in Japan, 2020 in the States. Literally, it is the COVID game for me. Like, not only do I, like, remember it as the COVID game, it's like, I remember, like, that being, like, in Naka Kon at the same time, because they were, like, right about to come out with each other, and it was just one of those funny things of just like, man, sure would have been fun to come to Naka Kon last year, but I guess I'll stay home and play this RPG for 100 hours or whatever. Yes.
They make every character say real too many times, and it just ruined the entire thing.
Yeah, like ruined Ryuji's character. So eerie.
Yeah, so 5 Royal is so weird of like it's acting like it's trying to be the definitive version of 5, and in a lot of ways it is. Like, in a world of Royal, there's very few instances where I would say don't play it over the vanilla version, but the weird thing with it, and kind of what that Dante cosplayer was saying a little bit ago, the things they fix when it's done right, and the things that they excel in, specifically new characters, Kasumi, Maruki, shoutouts to Jose, aka everyone forgets about him, and the entire third semester is some of the best work in the entire series. Like, oh, yes. Oh my, yeah, the cinematics are like, even like, but like, then this goes back to what I'm saying. It's so uneven. Like, looking at some of the cinematics for the ending, and even something like with the Showtime, the finishing attacks, those are amazing. They're fluidly animated. They look gorgeous. It's awesome seeing them team up with each other. Compare that to the other every other animation in the battle. Cool. It's like, here's the old team, here's the new team. When I think it would have just been better to just... Because Persona 5 Royal had a very small development team on it, which is why it took them almost 3 years to release it. Because the team behind Persona 4 Golden were the team who made Royal. The team behind Persona 5 have been over at Studio Zero. They're working on Refantasy. They did the Catherine full body port. But the team at Royal, I think if they had either a bigger team or bigger budget or more time, it probably would have been better for them, and obviously would have kind of seemed stupid in hindsight. Just do what they did to the third semester for the whole game. Rip it apart, get what people loved to have it still there, but like there are many sections of like Persona 5, like for me, that like infuriate me in terms of like it just kind of ruins the experience. Like for me, as much good things as I can always say about Persona 5, my biggest problem starts as soon as you start playing the game of I hate the motif of you are in an interrogation room and it's a flashback and forth. And of like, that can be done well in certain mediums, but the way it does it in 5 is always so poorly handled of like, I don't need to know that Akumura dies before I meet Akumura. Like you're ruining your own story, and it like really sucks of like what it does well with the characters, it really does well in the story. I feel just gets very messy and very kind of sloppy all over the place. You had something, and then I'll get you right after.
So the boss fight is totally ruined in the level. You have to know the parts and that's just
The weird thing is, yes, they some of the boss fights they like moved around in weird ways of changing the balancing. It's not only move it to the hardest; it's either easiest or hardest. You could do it on safety, just press triangle in the boss fight. But yeah, that one for specific reasons, oddly, like I never had an issue with it. But that was for such a fun thing of like when the game came out, be like, "Yo, is the Akumura boss fight like broken?" Because like people were just like, the conditions are so specific. And so many people had so much issue with it. You? Yeah, we don't need flashbacks for when I meet the fortune teller in the middle of the road. We don't need flashbacks for every time I learn how to fish with my teacher. It's a good idea and premise, but I think because of how much it's used is really, really like hindering the experience. One of my favorite things right now, I don't know if anyone here is reading or reads the Persona 5 manga that Viz is publishing. It is so good. The adaptation has been really excellent of things they change, things they move around, things they get rid of. And the best part is this manga adaptation started before the Japanese release came out in 2016, and they are not even up to Akumura's Palace in Japan. Like, because it's monthly, the guy's he's been going so long in production of this that they're even implementing elements of Royal. So they've taken so long for this manga to finish that Kasumi is now in it, Maruki is now in it, and we're probably going to get Jose and everything with it. So it'll be funny after, like, probably when my grandkids are born and the manga's done, there's going to be this weird adaptation that is going to have everything from Persona 5 and Royal, and as long as they don't ruin it in the last half, is like my favorite version of Persona 5. But yes, speaking of my favorite things, Persona 5 Scramble and Persona 5 Strikers came out last year, this year. I'm very biased towards this game, as I apparently am with like every game in the series, but one of the reasons why is I love Omega Force, the team behind the Dynasty Warriors games. They work at Koei Tecmo. This was a collaborative process between Atlas, P Studio, and all of those teams involved. But Persona 5 Strikers is really interesting for so many kind of reasons. But I was curious here, who here has actually played Strikers? All right. Other weird question that would probably lower everyone's hands. Who here likes Persona 5 Strikers more than Persona 5? I'm not the only ones then. Thank you very much. I'm not the only one. I legitimately love these games like way more. Like when I played Royal, I was like, oh, I like this more than the original. It's very, very weird. Do you want to elaborate it? Yes.
I remember being really negative going into Strikers because I just finished Royal, and Royal was my very first one, and I fell in love with the aspects of Royal, and I don't say anything about that regarding the ending and stuff. Strikers is not very focused on that, and it's turning away from it, but then they just go through 11 everywhere.
Yeah, like I can now, if whatever next spin-off of Persona happens, and like I know people are like diehard about like OMG, like where's Kasumi in certain aspects. If Wolf and Zenkichi is not in every Persona 5 entry from now on, I will be personally offended. Yes. Yes, he does finally use the big boy F word, which like one of these days I need to like either like make a video or have a longer discussion. I don't know why these games are rated M. When you're playing Persona 5, you're like, this is an adult's game. Like it's a very high teen like rating for me of like, even though you drop the F-bomb, like I don't think these games probably need to be rated M for mature. Yeah, it's true. When half of your demons either look like boobs, vaginas, or dicks, that's kind of like you're limiting your rating there a little bit. So, see, I understand like the similarity, like comparison to a little bit, because for the most part, yes, you're going to have that thing of you enter, you collect the 3 things, you go to the sub boss, you do the other boss, and then you find the final section with it. My whole thing with the jails is I felt like they incorporated the personality way more than Persona 5's palaces did. Like, I loved the Ice Queen actually having like the thing set up with that, and even the world that it was kind of set up. Like, each area, while it played very similarly, I felt like related to each character in a motif way a lot more than I would have really expected, and I really appreciated it for that. But I get that one, especially because one of the arguments that came out a lot with Strikers when it came out in the West was, oh, it's just Persona 5 story again. Because it's like, oh, it's on having to deal with idol troubles, but it's not her this time. And for me, I actually really loved the story because with Strikers, it felt like a sequel and in a continuation and respected the past of like, no. Like, Yusuke from P5 could not have helped that author from Strikers the way he did without everything that had happened beforehand. So it like felt like a good evolution of all of their characters. It felt like a good like kind of, we're not like we're retreading familiar ground, but we're not like going through the same formula again and again and again. But like, I get it with the thing for it, because obviously everyone's going to kind of have different sides with it, and some people are going to be like, oh, this is a little too samey for me, and especially in a hack and slash, it's kind of bound to happen for it. But I get that for sure. Did one of you guys have your hands up? Yes. With hard, the weird one is I think normal is the best normal they've done in a while, and hard is the best hard an Atlas game has really had, because once you crank it up to hard or merciless, it like one of my favorite memories, I had a friend of mine was streaming the game on launch day, and he cranked it up to hard. He was like, oh, all Atlas games are easy. I'm going to just blow through this. And as soon as he was in the tutorial, I think like the tutorial boss killed him. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, while it might be easy even by hack and slash standards, I think for the fact that like you're not hearing as much of like we did with Royal, it was like, oh my God, how do you die in Royal? And I got that a lot more. Whereas like Strikers is like, it's probably dumbed down combat a little bit more, but it never felt like you were on autopilot. It still felt like you had to mentally be in the moment. Oh yeah, 100% in the same way for it. So we finally made it. After 25 years, we can now buy merchandise for Persona 5, which is sadly all we're kind of at, but we're in the fun future possibility of Persona is getting an announcement this year. They've announced they're doing 7 projects. Could be anything. Obviously, I've got my own kind of thoughts with it. I'm in the camp of the teaser right now on the website is Persona 4's coloring scheme, a yellow, blurry TV on the website. So, hey, Persona 4 Golden probably finally coming to consoles, very long overdue. But I was curious with you guys. So we have 7 projects that could be coming over the next year. What is the one you want? Might not be like the easy one, but like, what is your dream project of like, hey, I want this. You in the far back. Now I gotta ask, do you want PSP or the original?
I would actually prefer the PS1.
Okay. But just because I have to get into semantics, voice acting, would you want them to change it or keep the original?
Now I don't care if it's
Okay. Yes. I think people prepare for ports. There's going to be so many ports. It's going to be all over the place, and like everyone's going to get something. I think unless you're an Xbox only player, prepare for all of these to come to everything. Mm-hmm. Just like port or like more remastering sense. Okay. Yes. I've been like telling myself if they do 3, I think the smartest and the cheapest answer is probably going to please the people the most. Because while everyone wants that stuff from Fez, like the things you mentioned, it's like, I think if you lose the FemPro tag now, that's a huge, like, audience who's going to be like, come on. Like, what the heck? Like, the immediate disappointment when people saw Kasumi's red hair in Royal's reveal, it was like, oh, it's a female protagonist. Oh, it's not. Like, we don't take it against Kasumi, but it's like, we are thirsty for someone for this sausage fest to finally not just be Maya and FemPro tag. So I get that, but the other one is like, I'm in this boat of like, I kind of think if they just took the PSP version of Portable, put it in 4K and made it run at 60 and did nothing else, I think it'd be like, it sucks. Maybe I'll throw in a video for the answer, but like, I think at the end of the day, because I don't trust them to go in and add these features, because it's like God only knows who's going to do it. And for people who might not know, Persona 3, unless you play a modded version or portable, you have no control over your AI outside of commanding them, hey, I hope you do this. And I think if you tell people who maybe started with Persona 5, go back to controlling only your leader, there's going to be a lot of blowback of like, nah, dude, that sucks. I don't like that. Yes. I think a 1 remake would be super easy, but I think you don't gain anything by making it 3D. And I think it would be really easy to just make that PSP version really pretty. Add in the original soundtrack, please more people that way. Maybe you do a couple of extra little things for it, but like, because that game is so simple in premise of it, like with the school and everything with it, because like there's no social links, it's very like kind of bare roots into everything with it. I would love a remake, but it'd also be one of those things of like, I can't imagine someone paying more than $20 for Persona 1, no matter how much more prettiness you put into it. That's like the one thing I've been like really the most happy with is people being like, I just want the old games I can't play on more stuff. I'm glad, like, it's nice to be like, oh, are we going to get another Persona 5 game? Hilariously, no one here has said Persona 6. I think Persona 6 is probably going to happen in terms of an announcement, but I still think that's a very far, far, far future because the P5 team is not making 6. The team who made Royal is going to be making 6, and for how like small of a size they are, I think they have a lot of kind of like growing to do with that. So I think a teaser would please people, but also I think just have to like, you should like have to sign a waiver before watching the trailer for Persona 6 that just says, I am aware this is very far off and will not make comments on the internet. Yeah, and I mean, while I get the inconsistencies can definitely be a turnoff, I think that's also a lot of their kind of character. It's kind of like, and obviously when there's only been 5 mainline games, it's a little bit harder, but it's like, imagine if we were having a Final Fantasy panel, and I said, guys, I want them to remake Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 like Final Fantasy 7 Remake. It'd be great, I'm sure, if someone did it and pumped $1 bajillion into it. But at the end of the day, I think there would be more people who are just like, just give me the original game. Like, I'm not asking for a lot. I could see that for sure, but I'm in this weird point with like the genre of like, I love roguelikes, but I think we're at a point now where it is not cool to be just a roguelike unless there's like a twist. Because like I feel like unless you're like a super big one like a Hades, I think there's like a lot that kind of like back in the day, like 10 years ago, like having a roguelike like a Spelunky, you'd be like, oh cool, it's a roguelike. Whereas like now it's like, Jesus. It's like, yeah, it's Metroidvanias and roguelikes like every week on the Switch. But no, like that would be actually really cool. The question I want to ask you guys before we get out of here on this panel, there has been this whole thing of who are these secret panels. There's 2 secret pieces of art for the one. Does anyone have any like theories that are not Persona 6 related? Of like, who could this mystery person we're not showing off be? Any like guesses, thoughts? Well, Femsi is right here if you look at the bottom left for it. But like, do you mean a new female protagonist? I could see that because I have a really evil idea for what they're going to announce as one of their 7 projects that everyone hates, but I could see happening. So if anyone's been paying attention to games, especially on like PS5 games, there's been a lot of not only re-releases, but director's cuts re-releases. And I have this weird feeling in the back of my gut that I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony brought a ton of money to Atlas and said, hey, release Persona 5 Royal, the director's cut, and just add a couple new things in there. And it'd be like, man, we'd be really mad, but I bet you people would still buy that and play that if they just added in things that honed it even more, even though it is literally a re-release of a re-release. So yes, we've got our projects. This is the teaser image I was talking about. It's a kind of blurry looking yellow TV screen. If this doesn't say Persona 4 is happening soon, I don't know what does. The thing I've been telling everyone for the longest time is the reason console ports took so long, because the PC's port's been done forever ago, last year, was basically they wanted to wait for the anniversary, and they are most likely going to make like a retail package that is Persona 3 and 4. Because yes, you could sell Persona 4 for $20 on a store shelf, but you could probably sell a whole lot more if it was like a little anniversary bundle for $40 to $50 and include Persona 3 as well. So that's kind of been the whole thing with that one. But yes, that is the panel of speculating endlessly. I think we're pretty much, right at our time limit of things for it. So if you guys have any other questions or whatever for me, I have a couple cards left, and I have a random prize I would like to give out if anyone even thinks this is of value. I have the Persona 5 Strikers pre-order pin that I think only GameStop had. Answered very quickly, as anyone who would worked at a GameStop would answer, but yes. So for this one, if you want to win this, I'm going to have what I think is kind of a hard question, but hopefully not too hard. Who... okay, no. I had to stop myself because I already knew that would be too hard. It was going to be way too Koei Tecmo related. So for this one, who can tell me what is the best-selling non-mainline Persona game in the entire franchise? Not mainline. So it can't be just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the best-selling? Not Golden. You in the back. Is not. You. Yes. No. You guys have so many cards I can't give out. Yes, you. No. Although I kind of might count that. Yes. No. Person in the middle. Yes. No. I'm so sad how little that sold actually. Yes. Nope. It used to be. It's number 2 now. That was number 1 for many years. What is the best selling you? Well, actually, I mean you. Yeah. Okay. Yes. You got it right. But yes, were you going to say Strikers? Okay. Well, then we'll do this because I have an extra one of these at home. You can get the pin because you said it was correct. And if you see me tomorrow, if you are here tomorrow, I will bring a second one for you if you find me. I have a Shin Megami Tensei panel at noon tomorrow, I think.
Hell yeah.
So I have 3 of these left. Whoever wants to be the fastest that got the question wrong and wants an empty card, please run up here. You've all earned your empty card. You, since you were in the back, if you come to my panel, I will bring you a card because I felt bad that you ran that far for nothing. Well, everybody, thank you so much for coming to my panel. I hope you enjoyed it, and enjoy your convention.